Imagine a place where the temperature drops to 50 degrees below zero, where the air itself freezes your lungs with every breath, where the wind cuts across a frozen wasteland at 70 kilometers an hour, and the only sound is the crunch of boots on ice that never melts. This is the Siachen Glacier, 70 kilometers of frozen river, sitting at over 6,000 meters above sea level, higher than any mountain in Europe or North America. Since 1984, Indian and Pakistani soldiers have been stationed here, not fighting each other, fighting the environment. The glacier is the highest battlefield on Earth, but the enemy is not a human one. Avalanches, frostbite, altitude sickness, hypothermia. More than 2,000 soldiers have died on Siachen since the conflict began. Not a single one from enemy fire. In 2012, an avalanche buried an entire Pakistani battalion at Gayari. 129 soldiers, all killed instantly under millions of tons of ice and rock. In 2016, 10 Indian soldiers died the same way. In 2019, 4 more. Their bodies are sometimes found years later, perfectly preserved by the cold, frozen in the exact position where death found them. The cost of keeping troops here is estimated at $1 million per day. Every liter of fuel, every ration, every bullet must be carried by helicopter or on foot through terrain that kills without warning. The glacier has taken more lives than most wars, and yet they remain. Because to leave would mean the other side might take it. 2 nuclear powers, locked in a frozen stalemate on a glacier that doesn't care which flag flies above it. This place does not want you here. In the heart of winter, when the snow buries every road and every pass out of the Zanskar Valley, there is only one way out: a frozen river. The Chadar, the ice sheet that forms over the Zanskar River, becomes a highway for the locals. A highway made of ice that can crack beneath your feet at any moment. The trek follows the river for over 100 kilometers through a gorge so narrow that sunlight touches the bottom for only a few hours a day. The ice is unpredictable. Some sections are thick enough to support a truck. Others are paper thin, hiding black, freezing water underneath. One wrong step and you are in water so cold that hypothermia sets in within minutes. Temperatures drop to 30 degrees below zero at night. Trekkers sleep in caves along the gorge, huddled together, listening to the river groan beneath them. The ice moves. It shifts. It cracks. The sound is unmistakable. A deep, resonant boom that echoes through the canyon like something alive. Every year, people die on the Chadar. Some fall through the ice and are swept under the frozen surface, their bodies never recovered. Others succumb to the cold, found frozen in their sleeping bags. The locals know the river like a living thing. They read its moods, its sounds, its warnings. But even they have lost people to the Chadar. For centuries, this was the only connection between Zanskar and the outside world during winter. The only way to reach a hospital, a market, another human being. A road of ice, held together by temperature and luck. And when the ice breaks, the river takes what belongs to it. 8,091 meters, the 10th highest mountain on Earth, and the deadliest. Annapurna has a fatality rate of approximately 32%. Nearly 1 in every 3 climbers who attempt the summit never comes home. To put that in perspective, Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world, has a fatality rate of around 1%. Annapurna kills at 30 times that rate. The mountain is a machine designed to destroy. Its slopes are steep, its faces are unstable, and its weather is notoriously unpredictable. But the real killer is the avalanches. Annapurna is avalanche-prone like no other 8,000-meter peak. Snowslides, ice falls, serac collapses. The mountain sheds its skin constantly, and anything in the way is erased. In 2014, an avalanche killed 43 people on and around the mountain, the worst single disaster in Nepalese mountaineering history. In 2023, 3 climbers were killed in another avalanche. The list goes back decades. The first successful ascent in 1950 by Maurice Herzog and Louis Lacanal cost them all their toes and fingers to frostbite. Herzog later wrote that he left his own flesh on the summit. Annapurna means goddess of harvests in Sanskrit, a goddess who demands sacrifice. The mountain is beautiful. From a distance, its white peak against the blue sky looks almost peaceful. Up close, It is a wall of ice and rock that seems to lean toward you, waiting. Climbers speak of the constant sound of ice cracking, of seracs the size of buildings collapsing without warning, of the feeling that the mountain is actively trying to throw them off. It is. Annapurna has claimed 75 lives since records began, and it is not done. 8,611 meters, the second highest mountain on Earth. But in the world of mountaineering, Everest is a tourist destination compared to K2. K2 is called the Savage Mountain for a reason. It is steeper, more technical, and more exposed than Everest. There is no Sherpa infrastructure, no fixed ropes to the summit, no comfortable base camp with internet cafes. K2 is raw, vertical, and merciless. As of 2026, approximately 99 climbers have died on K2. The death rate hovers around 23%. 1 in 4 who reach the summit do not survive the descent. The most infamous section is the bottleneck, a narrow couloir at over 8,000 meters where a hanging glacier looms above. Seracs the size of apartment buildings can collapse at any moment. In 2008, 11 climbers died in a single day when a serac broke loose and swept the bottleneck clean. The statistics are brutal. Between 1930 and 2025, approximately 700 people have summited K2. Nearly 100 have died trying. Compare that to Everest, where over 11,000 summits have been achieved with roughly 300 deaths. K2 is not just harder. It is exponentially more dangerous. The mountain sits in the Karakoram Range, far from any civilization. The approach alone takes over a week through the Baltoro Glacier, a 60-kilometer trek across crevassed ice. Rescue is virtually impossible above Camp 2. If something goes wrong high on the mountain, you die where you stand. American climber George Bell, who survived a 1953 attempt, wrote the most famous description of K2. It is a savage mountain that tries to kill you. It succeeds often. At 5,029 meters, high in the Indian Himalayas, there is a small glacial lake. It is frozen for most of the year, but when the ice melts in autumn, something surfaces from the water. Hundreds of human skeletons. Rupkund is called the Skeleton Lake for obvious reasons. Scattered around its shores and floating in its dark waters are the remains of as many as 800 people. For decades, no one knew who they were, where they came from, or how they died. The local legend says a king named Jastawal of Kanauj was traveling with his pregnant queen and a large retinue when they were caught in a violent hailstorm. The hailstones, the story goes, were the size of cricket balls, sent by an angry goddess. The entire party perished where they stood. For a long time, that was the accepted explanation. A single event, a single group, a single tragedy. Then science caught up. In 2019, a team of researchers published the first full genomic analysis of 38 skeletons from Rupkund. The results overturned everything. The skeletons did not belong to a single group. They belonged to at least 3 distinct populations. One group had South Asian ancestry, dating from the 7th to 10th centuries. Another group had Mediterranean ancestry, closely related to modern populations from Greece and Crete, dating from around the same period. A third group had Southeast Asian ancestry from a much later time. People from different continents, different centuries, all dying at the same small lake. How? Why? The hailstorm theory still holds for some of them. The skulls show blunt force trauma consistent with large, round objects striking from above. But that does not explain the diversity. It does not explain why a group of Mediterranean travelers would be hiking through the Indian Himalayas over 1,000 years ago. Rupkund remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the Himalayan range. The lake gives up its dead every autumn, but it keeps its secrets. Number 5. Gangkhar Puensum, Bhutan-China border. 7,570 meters. The highest unclimbed mountain in the world. Not the most dangerous, not the most remote. The most unclimbed. No human being has ever stood on its summit. And likely, no one ever will. Gangkhar Puensum sits on the border between Bhutan and China. Its name in Dzongkha means White Peak of the Three Spiritual Brothers. The mountain has 3 distinct summits, and all of them remain untouched. In 1994, Bhutan banned mountaineering on peaks above 6,000 meters out of respect for local spiritual beliefs. In 2003, the ban became absolute. All mountaineering was prohibited across the entire country. The mountain is considered sacred. The spirits that live there, the Bhutanese believe, do not want to be disturbed. A few expeditions attempted Gangkhar Puensum before the ban. In 1985, a British team reached a subsidiary peak, but failed to summit the main massif. In 1986, a Japanese team tried and failed. After the ban, climbing became illegal. The mountain was left alone. From the Tibetan side, the mountain is accessible, but the Chinese government has also restricted access. Even if a climber were willing to break the law, the logistics are nearly impossible. The mountain is surrounded by dense forest, steep ridges, and unpredictable weather. It is a fortress of rock and ice, guarded by policy and by nature. There is something profoundly humbling about Gangkhar Puensum. In an age where every corner of the planet has been mapped, photographed, and conquered, this one peak remains defiant. It stands as a reminder that there are still places on Earth where humans are not welcome. The three spiritual brothers keep their watch, and no one comes. 6,638 meters. Not the tallest mountain in the Himalayas, not even close, but perhaps the most sacred and the most forbidden. Mount Kailash is holy to four religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the ancient Tibetan Bon faith. Hindus believe it is the abode of Lord Shiva. Buddhists see it as the center of the universe. Jains believe their first Tirthankara achieved enlightenment here. The Bon consider it the seat of all spiritual power, and no one has ever climbed it, not because it is technically impossible. Kailash is not a particularly difficult climb by mountaineering standards. The reason is prohibition. The Chinese government has banned all climbing attempts out of respect for its religious significance. But the ban is only part of the story. There is a persistent legend among the local Tibetans that anyone who attempts to climb Kailash will die or go mad. The mountain, they say, does not permit itself to be stepped on. Pilgrims walk the 52-kilometer Kora around its base, a journey that takes 3 days and is considered one of the most sacred acts in Tibetan Buddhism. They touch the earth. They pray, they prostrate themselves, but they never ascend. Every year, thousands of pilgrims make the journey. They walk through high passes at over 5,600 meters, through snow and wind and thin air. Some die on the Kora itself, from altitude sickness, from exposure, from the sheer physical toll, but they keep walking. Because the mountain is not a challenge to be conquered, it is a deity to be honored. Mount Kailash is one of the most photographed peaks in the world. Its distinctive pyramid shape, often draped in clouds, is instantly recognizable. But no photograph has ever been taken from its summit, because no one has ever been there. 7,816 meters, the second highest mountain in India, the bliss-giving goddess, and a mountain with a dark personal sense of tragedy. Nanda Devi is considered one of the most beautiful peaks in the Himalayas, a graceful pyramid of rock and ice that rises above a ring of protective ridges. But beauty is not kindness. The mountain has claimed many lives, and one of them carries a story so haunting it deserves to be told alone. In 1976, legendary American alpinist Willie Unzold, one of the first Americans to summit Everest in 1963, attempted Nanda Devi with a team that included his 22-year-old daughter. Her name was Nanda Devi Unzold. Her father had named her after the mountain he loved. She died on the mountain that shared her name. The official cause was altitude sickness and exhaustion. She was ascending a steep ice slope when her body simply gave out. Her father, who had named her after this peak, had to leave her body on its slopes. He continued the expedition, reached the summit, and returned home without his daughter. But Nanda Devi's toll does not end there. In 2022, 8 climbers attempting an unclimbed satellite peak on the flanks of Nanda Devi East were caught in an avalanche. 5 bodies were found in the debris. 3 more were never recovered. The mountain kept them. The local name, Nanda Devi, means goddess of bliss. But the goddess is not a gentle one. She is the kind of deity who demands everything and gives nothing in return. The mountain is ringed by an inner sanctum, a circle of peaks that form a natural fortress around her. Getting to her base alone requires crossing a glacier and navigating a maze of crevasses. And even then, she decides who may approach. Nanda Devi Unsold was 22 years old when she died on the mountain her father loved. Her body is still there. Hidden in the rain shadow of the Annapurna and Dhaulagiri ranges, there is a place that was closed to the outside world until 1992. Upper Mustang, the last remnant of the ancient Tibetan kingdom of Lo. A desert at 4,000 meters, where the wind never stops and the landscape looks like another planet. Mustang is a high-altitude desert. Less than 200 millimeters of rain fall here per year. The land is dry, cracked, and colored in shades of ochre and rust. The wind howls through canyons carved by ancient rivers, carrying dust that gets into everything: eyes, lungs, food, thoughts. But what makes Mustang truly disturbing is what lies in its cliffs. The sky caves of Mustang are artificial chambers carved into vertical rock faces, hundreds of meters above the valley floor. Inside these caves are human remains. Skeletons, some over 3,000 years old, lie in wooden coffins or simply on the stone floor. No one knows exactly who put them there or how they reached such inaccessible heights. The ladders and ropes that must have been used have long since rotted away. In 2010, a team of explorers discovered a cave containing the remains of at least 27 people, along with bronze vessels, glass beads, and silk. The silk came from China, the beads from India, the bronze from somewhere else entirely. Mustang, despite its isolation, was once a crossroads of cultures. A place where traders, pilgrims, and nomads crossed paths in the thin air of the Tibetan plateau. And then, it was sealed off. The kingdom of Lo became a forbidden land, accessible only by permit, and only to a handful of visitors each year. The wind still blows through the caves. The skeletons still lie where they were placed 3,000 years ago. Mustang is a place where time stopped, and where the dead are the only permanent residents, the deepest canyon on Earth, 5,382 meters deep. To understand that number, consider this. The Grand Canyon in Arizona is roughly 1,800 meters deep at its lowest point. The Yarlung Tsangpo Gorge is 3 times deeper. It is so deep that the difference between its rim and its floor is greater than the height of the highest mountain in the lower 48 United States. The Tsangpo River, which flows from the Tibetan Plateau, enters this gorge and disappears. For over 200 kilometers, the river cuts through the eastern Himalayas in a chasm so narrow and so violent that much of it remains unexplored. The water drops over 3,000 meters in elevation through the gorge, a descent so steep that the river's gradient is among the steepest of any major river on Earth. Expeditions have tried to navigate the Tsangpo Gorge. Some have failed, some have disappeared entirely. In 1998, a team of world-class kayakers attempted to run the river through the gorge. One of them, Doug Gordon, described the experience as being inside a washing machine filled with rocks. The water pressure is so immense that it creates hydraulic holes, underwater vortices that trap anything that enters and hold it until it drowns. The team barely made it out alive. But the gorge is not just a geological wonder. It is also the location of one of the most persistent and haunting legends of the Himalayas. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Yarlung Tsangpo Gorge is the gateway to Shambhala, the hidden kingdom of enlightened beings, a paradise concealed from the material world. The legend says that at the deepest point of the gorge, where the river thunders through a crack in the earth so narrow that sunlight never reaches the water, there is a hidden entrance, a passage to a world that exists alongside ours, but invisible to those not ready to find it. Explorers have searched for Shambhala in the Tsangpo Gorge for over a century. The British spy and explorer Francis Younghusband believed in it. The Russian painter and mystic Nicholas Roerich searched for it. Modern expeditions with satellite imagery and GPS have found nothing, except the gorge itself, which is more than enough. The Tsangpo Gorge is a place where the earth opens up and swallows everything. Water, light, sound, expeditions, legends. It is the place where the planet reminds you that there are still frontiers that cannot be crossed, depths that cannot be measured, secrets that cannot be uncovered. The locals call it the place where the world ends. And that is the list. 10 places in the greatest mountain range on Earth that defy belief. A glacier where soldiers freeze to death in a war that never ends. A river of ice that cracks beneath the feet of those who walk it. Mountains that kill 3 out of every 10 who dare to climb them. A lake that gives up the bones of travelers from 1,000 years ago and 3 continents away. Peaks so sacred that no human foot has ever touched them. A canyon so deep that it hides a kingdom of legend. The Himalayas are the youngest mountain range on the planet, geologically speaking. They are still rising, still growing, still changing, and they are still, in so many ways, unknown. The planet was not made for us. It was here long before we arrived, and it will be here long after we are gone. But places like these, the Siachen, the Chadar, Annapurna, K2, Rupkund, Gankar Puensum, Kailash, Nanda Devi, Mustang, the Tsangpo Gorge, they are reminders that the Earth is not a playground. It is a living, breathing, dangerous world, and there are places where it has made that very, very clear. If you made it this far, tell us in the comments, which of these places disturbed you the most? The Lake of Skeletons? The unclimbable mountain? The canyon where the world ends? We read every single one. And if you want to see where we go next, a place so impossible that even the scientists who discovered it refuse to believe their own data, make sure that subscribe button is red, because the next video will take you somewhere even deeper, somewhere the light has never reached.